This video's going to be in two parts. The first, we're going to be looking at a little bit of a hobby update. The first part is the Bretonnians. Obviously, I've talked about wanting to spend more time on an army, put more effort in, and also using channel members' heraldry on my models. So we're going to start there, talk about where I'm up to, do a little bit more, see what the next steps are, and then either in the description or probably in the next couple of days, I'll put a members only post out, actually. Yes, let's do that way. I'll put a members only post out with a link so that you can start submitting your heraldry and I can start making tracks, putting actual heraldry onto the models. And yeah, looking forward to it. I think it's a really fun project. The second part is going to be talking about the event I won weekend just gone. And if you are interested in doing better at events and you'd like to do coaching, well, here's a word from our sponsor, which is me. If you want someone who consistently does well at events and can back up the results to teach you how to do better at your events, or just with any level of play that you're looking to improve on. This video is brought to you by the Close Order Coaching Patron. If you're interested in more information than you can get on a Fix My List, or you're looking to work on specific aspects of your game that maybe I haven't covered in a video, this is the place to do so. Coaching comes in two tiers, either a one-on-one, 1 hour chat where we can discuss list building, various aspects of your game, what you'd like to improve on, or a 3-hour coaching game where we can go more in depth onto certain aspects. Both tiers come with a personal Discord channel where you can ask me questions, get list advice, or just plan out what we want to address in the next session. If you have any questions, you can ask on the coaching section of the Close Order Discord, and you can book my time anywhere from 9 AM to 11 PM local time, depending on the day. Starting off with the hobby update, one of the things that I find improves the look of an army without having to go too deep into doing a lot more detail when you either don't have time or maybe don't have the skill to, take the paint job to the next level. Something I like to do is put a little bit more effort into the bases. So I don't often buy the resin printed bases, but these ones were pretty relatively well priced, I think, and I got enough to do basically all of the Bretonnians. Apart from I didn't buy any 30 by 60 mil bases, which is funny given that the army is entirely cavalry, or Bretonnians thematically are entirely cavalry, and all I got was 25 mil squares for my peasants, and then also, we took plenty of the other ones as well, the cav bases and the 25 by 50 mils for the mounted yeomen. So some of those got painted. I didn't actually have time to paint as many as I wanted to. I was meant to go to Saffron Slam the weekend before, but did get ill, so I didn't finish doing all my painting that I wanted to do there. And had a busy week the week after before the TSN Arena event. So I made some progress, and like I say, still a work in progress. But yeah, these are very quick to paint. Brown, I did take a picture without waiting for it to be fully dried, which I am now regretting. Look at the picture here. But yeah, it's just, brown earth, highlight a lighter brown, a little bit of contrast, and then pick out the details, the vines, the wood, the various greenery. And then my favorite bit is the mushrooms. Just adding a little bit of color spotting to the base there. They are literally just paint red and then dot with white. Nothing here is revolutionary or groundbreaking, but I was really happy with these for the amount of time I put in, and I didn't want to spend too much time on them, so there's no like edge highlighting on the plants or anything like that. It's going to be the base, we're not looking at a lot, but yeah, again, 3 or 4 minutes probably. No, it must be more than that. Let's say 5 or 6 minutes per base. Not too bad when you're batch painting them through. So some of these here, I did some of the bigger ones as well. As you can see, some flight stands as well. I was really smug with myself, not to anyone else, just personally. I was very, very happy with how these turned out. And smug is the right word because I was overly confident unnecessarily. So these are just metal tubes, metal wire, not wire, metal rods, that's the word I'm looking for. Metal rods, clip them to size. I've got some that are very short, and these are the bases for my Pegasus Knights. So the ones that are very short, the Pegasus Knights, are basically touching the bottom of the base, and then the ones that are very tall, they are tall enough that they can stack next to each other and the wings don't overlap. And I was like, I'm a genius, this is incredible. I hit 2 problems very quickly. The first problem was that, yes, this is great. However, how are you going to transport them? Turns out the height of the flight stand is taller than the really useful box that I was storing my models in. So, yeah, shout out to Paul, one of my opponents this weekend, who told me about tall lids you can get. So I'm going to have to look into those, although I'm not sure where to get them because the company that he got his tall lids from do not do them anymore. So when I say tall lid, instead of a lid being flat like this, it's a lid that goes up and over, so it just adds more storage space, so it wouldn't be crushing the top of my models. So yeah, that was that. And then also the magnets I bought. So these have nice little magnet holes on the bottom of them. The magnets I bought, I obviously just bought the wrong ones. I've magnetized the bottoms of most of the armies since I started playing Warhammer, you know, getting back into it 5 or 6 years ago. It must be 6 or 7 years ago now. Time flies. I've magnetized the bottom of most of my bases. However, this is the first time I've bought bad magnets. Neomidium or whatever is the ones that you want to go for, and there's a specific rating. And I think I've just been lucky in that I've never specifically looked for them, but I've always just got the good ones and then just pressed like purchase again. But I needed to get some thinner ones, and these ones do not have any grip. So I'm gonna have to. I don't know, maybe put some magnetic sheeting on the bottom of them, something like that. I'll come up with a solution when I need to transport this army, but I'm going to be looking to play another army for the, trying to get another faction win so I can end the year with at least, my top 4 scores on the Old World rankings being 4 different armies. Anyway, getting off topic. Yeah, so happy with these, and again, you can see the little mushrooms on some of those bases as well. Adds a little bit of colour, and yeah. Good stuff there. The Knights of the Realm on foot, I did as well. Now, these are super basic, and they do need cleaning up, and they do need additional detail adding, but this is just sort of the general approach I'm going for. It's a yellow cloth with a metal paint, and one of the things I did use, in fact, I think I've got it on these AK Interactive Real Color Markers, not sponsors, but I really like them. The TSN Arena group chat, there was a lot of talk about them. It's just, let me show you here. It looks like a felt tip pen. It's basically a felt tip pen, but it's got paint in it. And yeah, using that for going around and just, touching up details, or on anything like shields where you just like, I just want to go around and get the edges of them. I really like that. I also got a couple of browns. So the silver, fantastic. Got a couple of browns. These browns look nothing like the colour that they've got on the tin. Very unimpressed with the browns. But the silver was fantastic, and I should have got a black as well, so I could go in and touch up some little details. But yeah, that's the vaguely finished product before, additional detailing will be added. And you can see like where the eyes are, for example, in between the 2 helmets on the left. They need some flesh adding, but I'll get to that. Just wanted to get it all relatively painted well enough to go to an event and then go from there. Another angle from them. I want to touch up the yellow as well. I went very heavy on the wash, which is a super rookie mistake, and I just wasn't thinking, basically. So what I should have done, which I did for the peasants, which is to water down my my flesh shade wash and hit them with that overall. So I'll be going back and neatening up as and when, I'm sure. What else have we got? Here's the full picture of the army, and again, I said this on the podcast. I don't know if you watch that, but there's been an update to my phone, and the update has changed either the default settings or just the total settings on my phone, so I need to look into that. But yeah, instead of taking the picture when I press the shutter, it takes, like a half second afterwards. So I didn't realize that until I'd taken loads of pictures at the event. However, you can see some of the detail here. Here's a full shot, and while, it's not the full army, let me just zoom in, and you can see a couple of units of peasants down here. With the peasants, I went with lots of browns to, try and keep it cohesive, and but also trying to go for a vague realism theme. Not quite Blanchitsu, but, just going for really grotty and dirty and grimy, but also tying in with the knights as well. So that's the goal there. And then we've got the yeomen in the centre with their big shields, which are going to be very good for putting heraldry on. If you are a Fnatic tier member, that is probably where your heraldry is going to go. So I've got enough models to actually put the paint on there. Nice closer up shot here of the Knights of the Realm on foot that we've already seen. For this event, instead of having the 5 that you saw here, because it was a 2,600 point event, I did go up to 12. 12 felt pretty good. Knights of the Realm, I like them. Obviously, for Bretonians, if you're playing, any type of Bretonians, you've got to take some sort of tax unit. And for Grand Army and Exiles, which is what I was playing, you've got to take 1 tax unit of Knights of the Realm, got to take 1 tax unit of Peasants. Joke's on them. Peasants are incredible, and Knights of the Realm on foot are really cheap, so I don't mind that at all. As taxes go, I'm pretty okay paying for that one. What else have we got? Yes, we've got all of the Pegasus in the background there. Again, looking not as neat and tidy as I'd like, not as detailed as I'd like, but you can see the general premise. I really like the Musalon backstory and the paint scheme as well. The black and yellow just appealed to me. So when I started painting them, I thought, you know what, let's go with that. That's the classic there. Got our slightly blurry Outcast Wizard here from the it's like Empire Wizard box set. You can get it in Age of Sigmar now. Came out years ago for Fantasy, which is the one which you can make. I think it's 4 wizards out of the kit or something wild, and there's enough pieces to make it for one for each of, or there's all of the different 8. I was going to say colors of magic. The 8 schools of magic, colleges of magic that I'm looking for, that obviously we haven't reached in Old World yet. Got that to look forward to. That's my expectation. Side nugget, my expectation for 2nd edition Old World is that we get, the formalization of the colleges of magic, and it's going to be a big magic edition, or maybe 3rd edition. Who can say? We will see when we get there. But yes, so we've got an Outcast Wizard here in the back. We got a couple of Barons on Royal Pegasus, painted, in reverse, so one's got more black on the Pegasus, one's got more yellow. Try to keep them at least visually distinct a little bit. One's with a lance, one's with a sword. Make it easy to represent which one's which on the tabletop. My BSB there in the center. 3 banners, so I've got 2 banners, one that's fully black, one that's fully yellow, one that is black and yellow, making that as easy as possible again to distinguish on the tabletop, because it's just on a barded Pegasus. They all kind of look a little bit the same on the table. So maybe I need to find a better way of color coding, but maybe that comes with the heraldry they'll be putting on the models as well. So perhaps that is the goal there. I don't think I took any close-up pictures of the cannons, unless there's one on here. Yeah, but it's the Age of Sigmar Einweld cannons. I actually quite like them, and they are super easy to paint. I use the AK Interactive marker pen a lot for these, just going through and getting all of the little edging and trimming on the cannons there. You can obviously leave the front plate off. I quite like the effect that it's got. It's not really, it's very visually distinct from like Empire cannons, for example, in Fantasy or in the Old World. And having them be Bombard's border princes, just having something that looks a little bit different, I think fits in quite well. So I do like those. And also you can see down here as well. I did take some pictures actually, and I haven't put them in, so I will see if I can find those pictures. The peasants, the mounted yeomen here, they came from, I can't remember the name of it. I think it was, in fact, tell you what, instead of me guessing, let me take a moment, come back to you, and I'll show you exactly what I made them from. All right, I found it. The models that I used here are Oathmark Human Cavalry, and I spent, as you can see on the front here, £22.50 for them. They are, look how many sprues you get. You get enough to make 15 models here, and I wish I'd taken some more pictures of the sprues. These were super cheap, and my plan was, I was going to buy them, I was going to kick bash them with parts from the peasant sprues that I had spare kicking around. I was going to make them fit in cohesively and look really similar to the rest of the peasants. And I got building, and I didn't give them shields. If you want to give the mounted yeoman shields, which I do like, but it's a lot of points. If you want to give them shields, maybe you look at using the, men-at-arms shields that come in, and then that way you've got a cohesive look across the army. But if you don't want to use shields, the heads looked right, the bodies looked right, the weapons looked right, they just had bows. And I ended up just building them entirely from this kit, and I was really impressed. For 15 models for £22.50, really great value. Comes with some flat bases as well that are the right size, in case you don't have any 25mm by 50mm bases. But yeah, would really recommend these. They're a fantastic little kit, and if you're buying them direct from Games Workshop, it's going to be something ridiculous. I haven't looked, but I think it's probably like 40 odd quid for 5, because it's the old metal models, if I remember correctly. So yeah, if you do not have to play with the most official of official models at all times, Oathmark Human Cavalry, really recommend them. Great kits, and yeah, end up looking really solid and fit cohesively with the rest of the peasants. Rounding out the glamour shots here, we've got the Green Knight as well. I took one shot, just zoomed in slightly from between the rest of the army. And yeah, went all glowy and ethereal. You can't see here. Maybe it's the angle. Maybe I just didn't put enough emphasis into it, but there is a nice red glow in those eyes. I swear, it's just not immediately visually available from this angle. I think, looking at this picture, I need to go back and make the eyes glow a little bit more. I also would like to put a bit more detail into it. This is just sort of a like Hexwraith flame over a grey spray with a white dry brush. You know, shout out to Slapchop, Rob Symes, the creator of all painting techniques, the most famous painter in Nottingham, as we all are aware. But yeah, I think I need to go back and do some more detail on this, and I definitely need to upgrade and replace the base. I hadn't even realised looking at it that those black rims are not only black rims instead of brown, but looking real dusty, so I've got to go back and touch that one up for sure. I'm just going to replace the base. But yeah, no, really good stuff. Happy with how the army's looking as sort of a general overall feel. Definitely needs more detail, definitely needs tidying up, but that is the basic premise. What am I going to be doing? Well, as you can see, there's lots of these nice big shields. So when I put up the post, when I work out how to do some sort of members post only on YouTube, I will I'll put some links in there for where you can find heraldry. And if you are a channel member, you'll be able to submit the heraldry you'd like me to use to put on the shields as well. Right now, starting out, I said this on the podcast as well, so apologies if you've heard me talk about this twice. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be starting out with colours only, so I won't be doing anything like symbolism or, you know, if there's an animal on there or anything like that. I don't have the skill right now to freehand it. I also don't want to take ages working on, like, you know, get 5 done, burn out, because it's horrible and awful painting all that really detailed heraldry. So what I'm going to do is, whatever the heraldry is, I will represent as best as I can with paint just in the colours. And then, you know, potentially down the line, if I get them all done in a good amount of time and I find a way of doing easy transfers or something like that, I can go back and put animals on them. But for now, it is going to be colours. And yeah, and maybe what I'd like to do as well is some sort of name plating on the models. I'm not promising that because I don't know how feasible that is for models that need to rank up, but it's something that I want to at least vaguely look into, depending on what the solution is. Moving on to the second part of the video, and this is talking about the list, talking about the event, talking about the games in a little bit more detail. I typically talk about my events on the podcast that Lewis and I do, the Close Order podcast, but what I find, even though I personally think that they're a little bit dull in terms of just talking about events, I think that's just my personal bias. What I find is I get a lot of feedback that people want more detail about the games and events. So, you know, here we are. We'll do the second part. We'll go into a bit more detail, hopefully break down the games a little bit more, talk about the fun parts, and go from there. Talk about any changes that I'd make, you know, all of the stuff that you can do with an event report. And I did take some pictures, nowhere near as much as Andy2D6, who maybe I have to take a leaf out of his book. That man is an absolute machine when it comes to taking pictures. If you haven't checked out his battle reports, he has, you know, he'll take pictures at the end of every turn so he can do detailed walkthroughs. Maybe I have to meet him somewhere in the middle and do a little bit more detail. So let me know if you think the amount of detail I go into in this video is enough, or if you still would like more detail. And if so, I will try and remember to take more pictures, but you know, no promises. I will see what I can do. So starting off, it was a 2.6k event, and 2.6k events are bigger than 2k events, funnily enough. Who would have thought it? Now, if you haven't tried 2,600 points or over 2,000 points, I definitely recommend it. I think it adds a lot to the enjoyment of the game. Also, Rob's events, currently he is using all of the scoring. So if you're playing, you know, one of the missions that says has strategic locations 3, may also have special location domination and baggage train, he puts all of those in there. So this list was built with good scoring in mind, as you'll be able to see if I just scroll down. Oh, look at all of this core, all of this peasant core. So yeah, I wouldn't make many changes anyway. Even if I was only playing strategic locations and baggage trains, I still like what we've gone for here, and we'll talk about it in more detail. But this is a scoring heavy match play, you know, pack, and it's 2,600 points, so more points in there. Is 2,600 points better than 2,000 points? I think that's interesting. This is, I think in an ideal world, I like 2,000 points more. And I say that because you have to make choices. You're limited in some ways. You know, Wood Elves are a good example. You can only take Double Dragon at 2k points for Wood Elves. You can't also take a Wizard. There is a limitation there. Cool. You've got to make some choices. However, not all factions are created equal. And the ones that are at the top of the meta, the armies that are really good, kind of just can do it all at 2,000 points. So you can have complete armies that interact in all phases of the game that you want to interact with for Cathay, Vampire Counts, Tomb Kings, probably Bretonnians. Those sorts of factions at 2,000 points just get to do more stuff than stuff like Wood Elves, High Elves, these factions that can be sort of jack of all trades, but you can't fit everything into a list at 2,000 points. You've got to make some cuts, which is fun for list building, but on the tabletop means that you are a little bit disadvantaged. So I like it. If all of the factions were equally well balanced, I'd prefer 2,000 points, but it allows the factions that are more sort of like bottom of A tier or B tier, High Elves are a great example, to put more stuff in. High Elves can do everything. Okay, they can do everything to a decent level, but they can't do it all at the same time. With 2,600 points, you want to take a unit of Dragon Princes? Great. You want to take 2 units of Sisters of Avalon? You can do that. You want to take 2 dragons and a Foot Wizard? All of this is fine. So I like the flexibility that comes in with 2,600 points, and it's something that I'm very glad to be able to have on my doorstep and be able to play there. Before we get deep into actually looking at the games, I think if you're going to sit in front of a camera and say, oh, obviously I was just the best player on the day, I'm fantastic, I think it's much more honest to point out the luckiness or the limiting factors in the accolade that you have won. So 2 big things that I think are definitely worth talking about before we break down the games. First of all, no Cathay, which fantastic. I don't want to have to play against the Cathay all that much. Talking about the Tune Cathay lists, obviously, if you're a Cathay player and you really love like the Jade Sentinels and stuff like that, don't feel bad for playing the new cool faction. It's just, obviously, if I'm looking at it through the lens of the top level play with the WTC players, for example, there's, the multi-balloon list, it's figured out, it does what it does very well. So no Cathay at the event, which does make winning it significantly easier if you're not a Cathay player. Second of all, size of event. It was only 18 players. Now, 18 players in Old World is probably sort of, I'd say, a mid-size event, but it is smaller and it is easier to win a smaller event. And I think it would be dishonest to pretend that it isn't that. So we do now have events you get up to 40, 50, 60 players, but they're ones that are run less frequently. Maybe you've got that once or twice a year, maybe 3 times a year, depending on the venue in the Old World, whereas something like this can go up to 24 players, and Rob runs them every, I don't know, 3 to 4 weeks, so there's plenty of events going on. But yeah, those are the 2 main things that made the event easier to win. So let's actually look at the games that I did win. Getting a little ahead of myself there. I forgot to talk about the list. So the list is at 2,600 points, you can take double Baron, and the Green Knight, and a Wizard, and you can take a BSB Paladin on a Bard of Pegasus as well. And I still have points left here. The funny thing about list building for Exiles is you don't actually have 1,000 points available, because even at 2,000 points, you don't have the full character slot available, because what you want to spend down in the special and rare eats into your character budget, which is one of the few armies in the game, I think, where you don't really necessarily want to go the full 1,000 points. The list choices, the Green Knight, obviously an absolute terror. You've seen him, you hate him, he is a pain to deal with, he's ethereal, he can charge the turn he comes on. He's actually kind of easy to play around on stuff like the TSN Arena boards, where there's 2 woods and you can just fill up the one in your deployment zone. The TSN uses the TPS, the Terrain Picking System. Great acronym. And usually you'll be able to either pick the map that has the wood in your deployment zone, or get rid of the wood that doesn't have it in your deployment zone. 3 different maps, do a roll-off, whoever loses the roll-off bans one of the 3 maps, and the winner picks the other 2. So there's usually a lot of flexibility in making sure that you're not going to die to the Green Knight early on. Also, in 1.5 especially, his damage is pretty anemic, and there's more static combat res coming, and it's harder to deal damage to infantry because they've got a better save, and they have more static combat res. They've got the infantry outnumber. You've got the Dolores Blade, which sounds great, but it's all AP -1, and then Armor Bane here, which is all well and good, but it's not something that you can put into infantry and get good consistent results. Even with the additional D6 attacks from the sweep profile, he doesn't actually do that much damage. Now, he's incredible, and the reason he's in is a bit of Cathay tech. So one of the best things, or well, The way that balloons work, the character balloons especially, is that you're not going to be able to kill them in combat because there's got loads of wounds and layered saves. You know, it's the dragon problem, but they don't have to be in melee to interact with you. Also, when you catch them, either they win combat, which is unlikely, but it could theoretically happen, or they lose combat, and if they lose combat, they're unbreakable, so they never flee. They take a leadership test, and if they pass the leadership test, what happens is you follow up 2 inches, as if they gave ground, but they get to fall back in good order. So it is incredibly unlikely that they ever get locked in combat with you. What is the tech piece here? The Green Knight. The Green Knight's ethereal, so you can charge without being stand and shot, because they don't have magical attacks. Good stuff there. You get into combat with them, and hopefully what you do is you use your Dolores Blade, because it's a magic weapon, you have to. You use the extra attacks profile. Your strength 4, so you're wounding on 5s. You'll be hitting on 3s, wounding on... unless the weapon... Anyway, you'll be hitting on 3s or 2s. I can't remember their weapon skill. You've only AP 1, so they've got at base a 4-up armor save. So, you know, any wounds that you actually do when you're wounding on 5s, they get a 5-up save, and then they get the ward save. So you're hoping to do 0 wounds with the Green Knight. If you manage to do 0 wounds, then... you know, they can't do any wounds to you. The combat is tied. They don't test to fall back. You just stay stuck in combat and you've tied up a balloon and it doesn't get to do anything. So that's the best case scenario. That's why the Green Knight is a tech piece for Bretonnian players into Cathay. And I'm looking forward to testing it into Cathay more, because the one game that I did online to test it went pretty well, but there is element of luck in there. If you get unlucky and you accidentally do wounds to them, you'll win combat, and then... Wait, winning combat's bad? Yeah, winning combat's bad. Then they manage to escape and they get to shoot the rest of your army, which is horrendous. The other tech piece that I decided not to put in, and the reason for this is at 2,600 points, if someone wanted to bring Cathay, they could bring like 6 balloons at 2,600 points. And no matter if I tech for them, there's no way I can beat them. So I took it out. But what you can do is you can put the Falcon Horn on one character, and I normally put it on the Paladin, making it so that the balloons lose a turn of fly. I am Exiles, so I get that veteran reroll for the leadership test. Just means that you can actually pin them in place and get the key charge off on a turn, or say you charge them on a turn, but then you have blown the Falcon Horn as well, so they can't get away. There's a lot of flexibility in how you use it. The change here is that I gave the Paladin the Spell Eater Axe to give it magic resist instead, and I like that more for just a general field, and it did come in handy given that I had to play against a 5 Vile-Tide list, and Orcs and Goblins with Itchy Nuisance everywhere, so those are the big tech choices that you go for. Also, the Outcast Wizard. I wasn't expecting to see a lot of Vampire Count players. When I looked at the event, I didn't see many Vampire Count players I recognised. There was one Vampire Count player there, but normally I'd go Dark Magic with Assyrian's Locket and Lore Familiar, so you can take Battle Lust, and then you can actually have a chance of cracking that big Graveguard brick, where you go into the front of it, you cast Battle Lust on the unit before you charge, obviously, Hatred and Frenzy. Suddenly each Pegasus is up to 3 attacks, each Pegasus Rider is up to 3 attacks, you're re-rolling all your hits. There's a lot of good stuff in there. But I thought, you know what, let's just play to the general field. Let's go for Lore Familiar Ruby Ring of Ruin, get the Oaken Shield from Battle Magic, have a double Fireball, have Arcane Urgency, and I found those tools to be really useful into beating the general field. Gives me a lot of flexibility. Barons, standard 2 Barons, or the 2 Barons you'd expect to see for Exiles anyway. We've got the General here, who I've gone for Frontier Axe with a single Charm Shield, with a Charm Shield on a Royal Pegasus and the Virtue of Knightly Temper. For anyone who doesn't know, Frontier Axe is a better Ogre Blade for 30 points, but it does take 2 hands. So you are Strength 6, AP 3, multiple wounds 2, which is great stuff there. Virtue of Knightly Temper, on the charge, you get Hatred, all enemies, and an additional D3 attacks. So given that an overrun counts as a charge, you still get the extra attacks on the charge, but Hatred, all enemies is first round of combat only. So if you follow up, you don't get those additional attacks. This is the sort of choppy character, and it's going to go in a unit with the banner, or the errantry banner, I should say, sorry. The errantry banner gives you +1 strength on the charge, so that makes him strength 7, and he can actually go into monsters and cleave through them to some degree. You're not going to beat a dragon, but you can go into sort of the gigantic spawn pretty consistently. You can go into anything that's not going to absolutely ruin your day in one go. The second Baron is the killiest version of the Virtue of Heroism. Virtue of Heroism is the vow that gives you Monster Slayer and Killing Blow, 60 points, really good stuff there. Equipped with a Lance, a Shield, Exile's Vow on a Royal Pegasus, and 3 Lucky Heirlooms. These things are fantastic. So they give you a once per battle round reroll failed hit, wound, armor save, or ward save. What does this mean? Well, he's going to go in a unit with the Virtue, or not the Virtue, the Banner of Honorable Warfare. It gives you rerolls against models with a ranged attack. Obviously, dragons having breath weapons is a ranged attack. So he'll go into the dragon, reroll all his hits, and then have up to 3 rerolls on failed wound rolls. If you want to consistently kill them, make sure you're using the hand weapon, not the lance, into these targets, because then you're only wounding on 6s, which is the roll you need. And then you get to reroll anything that isn't that 6 with your lucky heirloom there. He performed really poorly for me, actually. He didn't really kill anything meaningful all game, all tournament, I think. Which is funny, because he's the squishiest version, but also the killiest version. So I didn't get a lot of value out of him, but just the pressure of having him is quite strong to have. Last tech choice here is the Virtue of the Impetuous Knight on the Paladin in the characters. So Virtue of the Impetuous Knight does make you impetuous, but remember, impetuous has now been changed. So if you are veteran, it's a leadership test. You get to re-roll that leadership test. This gives you increase your max charge range by 3, and you get to apply D3 modifier to your charge roll. So you're getting up to 22-inch declarable charge range, and you get to charge more consistently and further. Why is this good? In the mirror matchup, quite nice to have, although they can countercharge. More importantly, Viletide. If your opponent has Viletide, if they can move 5 and cast a 15-inch spell, that's a 20-inch range spell. You can charge from 22 inches. It gives you a lot of flexibility, and it was really nice to have in the second round when I did play against the 5 Viletide list there. Into core, we've got a Brick of Yeoman Guard, 32, full command. I haven't given them the Blessed Triptych. I think, in my opinion, the Triptych isn't worth going for. For 25 points, it's an upgrade that gives your unit stubborn, but your opponent can just put attacks into the unit champion, the Grail Monk, and kill it. So I think if you're playing against good players, this is not worth taking, personally. Kept the default halberds, you're almost always going to use hand weapon and shields, but if you do need a little bit of extra punch, you're going to get more out the halberds than the thrusting spears. Also, War Banner, a little bit more static combat res. I think this unit has 7, because it does have Horde and Warband. Obviously, you've got great leadership in there. You've got 3 ranks, you've got Banner, you've got Infantry Outnumber, War Banner, Close Order. Yeah, static combat res of 7 for any unit that's smaller than that, which is pretty decent when all you're looking to do is be cheap, stand on a point, and not die. Peasant Bowman. Something that's worth mentioning is that peasants don't give up victory points for their standard bearer dying, which is just fantastic. So you can put a standard bearer in for the cost of 1 peasant bowman. You get +1 combat res, which means that you actually win fights into light cavalry more often than you expect, while you stand and shoot them and then, just to hit them. 14, enough there to take a couple of wounds and still be able to score. Skirmishes, so they're not immune to enemy light, ballistic skill shooting, but they're pretty good at it because they can touch a wood, they can be long range, they can be skirmishes. They're probably going to survive against enemy ballistic skill shooting. And then we've got the 2 units of mounted yeomen. These things are absolutely fantastic. They are, I think, the best unit in the list. I said this to someone over the weekend, and they said, yeah, of course you like them. They're the most elf-like Bretonnian unit, which I did agree with. So they are an 8-inch move light cavalry. They're, 3s across the board. Human stat line. They've got short bows. They've got cavalry spears. They're naked. They have no armor. They have no shield, which means you have to be quite defensive with them. You've got to, make sure that they're hiding as much as possible or out of range. But look at all these rules. They've got they've got skirmishes, they've got swift stride, they've got reserve move, which is really, really solid. All of this stuff's really good. They're so cheap as well. 13 points a model is frankly ludicrous for what you get. These things were scoring me points left and right on strategic locations. Really do like them. Finally, Knights of the Realm on foot. I normally just go with 5, but given that I had more points to spend in core, I went for 12, gave them a unit champion so they could tank a charge from a dragon or something like that, and they were my dedicated baggage holder train. This unit is not Exile's Vow. That's deliberate. Why? Exile's Vow, if we go into the peasantry rule, that's where you can see it. Peasantry, they can use the leadership of a model within 6 inches that has the Knight's Vow, the Questing Vow, or Grail Vow. That specifically doesn't say Exile's Vow, So what the Knights of the Realm provide is leadership 8 in a bubble for your peasants. Now, yeah, peasant bowmen do have leadership 7, which is not too bad, but the mounted yeomen only have leadership 6 here, and the yeoman guard, while they're leadership 6 and they've got veteran warband and horde, if you get charged by something like a unit with first charge, or you get disrupted by being charged in the flanks, you're going to lose that leadership that you get because your ranks are disrupted. So having the static combat having the leadership of the Knights of the Realm to give them leadership 8 is just a nice consistency that you can go for there. And they hold baggage trains really well. Into rare, double bombards. These things are nuts. I had to explain to people all weekend the frankly ludicrous misfire table they've got. I just want to talk about this again because it's really funny. Misfire. On a 1, it's destroyed. Sure, that did happen. I did lose a bombard over the weekend to a misfire. On a 6, you can't shoot it next round. However, it shoots this turn, as if you rolled a 2 on the artillery dice. Okay, sure. Bit of a weird one. But you lose 1 turn of shooting from it. You don't lose you don't lose this turn, sorry, you lose next turn. Okay, sure. 2 to 3, you can't shoot this turn, and you lose a wound on the crew. Okay. 4 to 5, you can't shoot this turn. You never lose 2 turns worth of shooting with this thing, which I think is absolutely wild. They're so consistent, they're so cheap. It's AP3, it's got good armor bane, it's D3 plus 1 damage. Bombards, absolutely incredible. The main reason in my eyes as to why Exiles are so good is the bombard. It's really fantastic. It lets you put pressure on at ranged. If I was playing into Orcs and Goblins and Mortuary Cult and Beastmen with Vile Tides, and I didn't have any ranged pressure, I think those matchups would have been significantly harder. So definitely, if you're playing Exiles, look at the bombard, take both of them. Just take 2. They're really, really good. They don't take up that many points. Finally, we've got the Pegasus Knights, and something that I can't remember who put me onto this, so apologies that I can't credit. Banner of Shalons, always important. This is the banner that turns off stand and shoot for the Banner of Shalons there. Put it on the character that can join the units. If you're taking a BSB, put the Banner of Shalons on the Paladin, and then put the other banners on these 2, and that lets you be multi-purpose. So here, we've got the bigger unit, which is, you've got a first knight, a unit champion, and a standard bearer. No musician. You can always march when you fly. It's not super important. But yeah, so errantry banner here, giving +1 strength. So this is the smashing unit. It's going to go in and it's going to be better at killing big Death Stars, for example. And then this is the banner of honorable warfare. This is the unit that lets you reroll hits against anything with missile weapons. You can see a real reason to put the no stand and shoot into both of these, just whichever one it's better for at the time. I normally put it in with the errantry banner and just have the bigger unit fly around with the Baron with the frontier axe, but having the flexibility to also put it in here in case there's something that you do want to turn off stand and shoot but then reroll all your hits against. Nice to have. But yeah, nothing too surprising, I think. The core is the main tweak that I've got here. I think my core looks a little different. Shout out to Andy of Team England, who is playing Bretonnian for them in a week and a half's time. He's the one who put me onto the Mounted Yeoman core. They're so good, really, really valuable. I like 6s. He goes with slightly smaller units. But yeah, really good scoring in this sort of list. People were talking about it in the TSN Arena chat all weekend, calling it the peasant list, which I think is very fitting. The main thrust of the list is the peasants, and then the Pegasus Knights go out and do things. Round 1 started against James Breton. I've played James before. In fact, the last event we were both at, which was only a month or so before, we both played in round 5, so we bookended. We played at the last event last round, and this event in the first round. I was meant to be pairing against Nick Boucher, captain of Team France. Unfortunately, because James was running late and I got my ticket through sponsorship from Rob, he asked if I was willing to play the person who was going to be late and then just play into my lunch. So I did not get to play against Nick, which was unfortunate. It was a matchup I was really looking forward to, because he was playing Grand Army Bretonians. And anyone who doesn't know Grand Army versus Exiles, on a list basis alone, that is a very favoured matchup. You've got range pressure with the cannons, and because it's Bretonians versus Bretonians, they don't get to pray to the lady. So they don't get the ward save. I don't start with the ward save, but I can get it through the course of the game by overrunning willing challenges, all of that good stuff. So on the basis of just lists alone, Nick's a good player. we are pretty even in our win rate against each other at tournaments. I think we're roughly 50-50. One of us might have get one more game if we're on an odd number of matches played. But, you know, it's pretty even. I thought I had a really good shot into this one. It would have been nice to rack up a win there because purely on the list that I was playing. Anyway, paired into James, who is lovely, commission painter, really, really nice models. And James is playing Troll Horde, which is a list that I absolutely love. But also Bretonnians, it's, you know, a nice game to ease into. There's a lot of multi-wound stuff in there, great for my killing blow, great for my cannons, or so I thought, because it turns out that Troll Horde can just catch cannonballs with their teeth. They do not care about multi-wound weapons all that much, because they have so many layered saves. Round one was King of the Hill, and as you can see here, some lovely models from James. We've got a nice Ogdras in the centre there, plenty of trolls, river trolls, and stone trolls as well. And we were playing King of the Hill, which is an interesting one. Not necessarily a bad one for the Troll Horde. They've got some very, very sticky models that can just sit in the middle and try and score some points, but not bad for me as well. I've got the peasants, and it also means my opponent wants to come forwards to try and get all of those extra points. A really nice troll hag there as well. James was telling me he has a second troll hag that he wants to paint, but he's not going to, he's going to convert it, so there's a tree stump here, because painting all of the detail inside the net is apparently a real pain in the backside, which I can believe. I can absolutely believe. So round one went with, I believe I got the first turn. There is an app that I was sent to test called Raven Tally, which is pretty good at scoring. I've got some score sheets to show at the end of each match as well, for the first four anyway. And yeah, it gives you all of the details there. So let me just double check who played this one first. So if we go into Troll Horde, and if I go back to the start here, oops. Yes, James actually went first. Put the first unit down, we had a similar number of drops, got the +1, won, and went first. So moved forwards aggressively into the centre of the board. Don't think I got any pictures of. Yes, there's my deployment as well. As you can see, fairly standard. We're just looking at a hammer and anvil style deployment where you've got a hill in the middle, there's a strategic location there, there's my baggage train down the bottom left, James's baggage train just behind that hill over there, and no strategic locations on this one, just a big hill in the center to fight for. It goes pretty much as you might expect for a Troll Horde list, having to play into things with multiple wounds and also, you know, killing blow. So unfortunately for James, when he full sent forwards, it did mean that I managed to get some charges, but he also had some really poor luck with stupidity. I don't think there was a huge amount to break down in this one, just that my list was really well. It was a really good matchup for me into the Troll Horde. There were some Goblin Wolf Riders behind this building on the right, and they came down to try and threaten the cannon and the peasants down here, but I had enough shooting to thin them out, and those Wolf Riders did make a charge into the unit of peasant bowmen, who did their standard shoot. There were 3 that charged. I killed 2 with the standard shoot. The Wolf Riders did actually get rid of 6 models out of the peasants, but it wasn't, you know, it was through coherency. It wasn't through doing damage in combat, unfortunately. So I did win that one, and then the wolf ended up running off the board, didn't manage to rally. Over in the center here, the big unit you can see here, look how well they stack up together, kind of. Better than the normal flight stands. This unit was able to fly up into the center, aggressively take out this big unit of stone trolls, and then they had carte blanche to just run through the lines, killed the troll hag eventually, went into the back of this unit of Biggins, Orc Boys, who are there to provide a casting bunker. A really, really solid caster. It's the Staff of Badoom Orc Weird Knob with also being in the unit. So it's casting with +1, well, +3, +2 for the level, +1 for being in the unit of Orc Boys, plus an additional D3 for the Staff of Doom. So really consistently getting its spells off, even into my, you know, my Magic Resist 2 over here, but didn't make too much difference. A real, you know, problem for Troll Horde is the change where now if you're stupid, you can't cast spells. So on one of the turns, the Troll Hag did fail its stupidity, couldn't cast Big Smarts because it was stupid, and then just had to sit there in the open, which really did hurt James's chances, unfortunately. The unit over here has the Baron with the killing blow and the lance, went in to the unit of River Trolls, this is the unit of 3 over here, thought it was going to do incredible things, and killed, I think, 1 model, and then took, you know, a wound or 2 on the backswing. Trolls hit really hard, but their chance of hitting is very poor, so I got away a little bit lucky there. Also, I did bring in the Green Knight from this wood over here, and charged Ogdruz, who I thought, you know what, if I can get rid of the anti-stupidity blanket, this is going to go really well for me. Went in. He does kind of whiff in combat. 4 attacks, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s. Okay, that's fine. I think I got 2 wounds through. It's only AP 1. I only ended up doing 2 damage. Ogdruz swung back at me, did a wound, heals back up. Did end up fleeing from combat, but, you know, unfortunately for me, rolled a double 6 to flee. I rolled a double 1 to pursue, and my Green Knight was just stood out there in the open. However, the might of just the better stat blocks that the, you know, Bretonnians have definitely went in my favor there, and it wasn't a particularly, you know, the fights all went about as expected, and they were able to run through. But to point out again, the cannons did absolutely nothing in this game. They were very underwhelming, because if you got a 5-up rerollable regen save, you're going to get 0 to 1 wounds through from a cannonball if you're lucky enough to hit. That was my experience with it anyway. But MVPs this game, I would say, who are the MVPs? Probably, I'd have to say, no surprise, the big unit of Pegasus Knights here with the Paladin in and the Frontier Axe. They really took their pound of flesh. Went in, you know, the Frontier Axe character doing, you know, doing 6 to 8 wounds worth of damage into the Troll Horde, even after regen. Really, really solid stuff there. And it was a nice start to the game, and it was a big victory. Unfortunately, not much went in James's favour, and it ended up being, let me have a look here if I can just go to the end and find it. Yes, as you can see, quite a nice way of scoring. I did manage to get the King is Dead there. The King of the Hill, sorry. James got King of the Hill on turn 1, and then after that I was able to put enough pressure on and use the reserve move Cavalry as well, just to keep him off the point, get close enough, and score all of the secondary points there. Round 2 was into Paul. I've played Paul before. Really lovely chap. Pretty solid as well, you know, and he's playing a very good list here. We've got Wild Herd list, so we're going to be doing Viletide shenanigans. What do we got? We've got a great Bray Shaman, we've got 3 level 1 Bray Shamans, we've got Kralmore as well, so as much Viletide as you can shake a stick at. We've got the standard Primal War Herd here that we have to go for, quite a big one. A smaller unit of Gore, another smaller unit of Gore here, and then some Razor Gore, a couple of Chariots, another Chariot in special, some Dragon Ogres, and a Herdstone. We did talk a little bit about maybe some changes or refinements to make. I like, instead of the Skirmishing Gore here, having Skirmishing Ungore. They're just a lot cheaper, and they do mostly the same job, but I think this is a pretty well-tuned list. You've got the Beast Lord, who can go in the unit for some melee protection, super hard to hit, you know, very tanky, full plate. You've got Gnarled Hide on there to get you up to a 3-up save. You've got a shield that gets you to a 2-up save. You've got the Black Maul, which is the frankly hilarious weapon, giving you, you know, extra up to d6 extra attacks at a very high strength and AP. Uncanny Senses for a little bit more on the initiative stat, and Slug Skin as well, so you -1 to be hit there. The Wargore, adding more static combat res, is good as well. And we had the Pelt of Midnight Caster. So this caster, which is also the Hagtree Fetish caster, it's not going to be consistently getting up there the way that you might do if you were on a flying carpet, but it's got Pelt of Midnight. It's -1 to be shot in the unit, so you can go. This is quite a good list to tech into Cathay, for example. There's a lot of stuff in here. The Viletides can do damage to balloons, and it's really hard to deal with them in terms of this multiple static, you know, minuses to hit. I think there was also something else giving an additional -1 to be shot, but I can't remember off the top of my head. All the Brave Shamans had some sort of efficiency to cast, a couple of them with, you know, power scrolls here, and then we've got one with the Jagged Dagger where you can sacrifice wounds on unit and get pluses to cast that way. So we're probably getting those Viletides off, which was my experience in this game, even through the magic resist of the units that had it. Round 2, I was playing against Paul on the Fields of Glory, and Paul's models are lovely. He's got a really nice grey dry brush scheme that he said didn't take him too long to do, but really looks nice on the tabletop. Great effect there, and obviously a fantastic Herdstone as well. Some mix of some nice 3D printed stuff and other pieces as well. So this was strategic location 4, which, given that I didn't want to get close to his Viletides, was potentially going to be a bit of an issue. There is is it strategic location? There is a special feature in the center of the board as well, and we've got the baggage trains as well. So I'm trying to get as many points and scare my opponent off as many points as possible without just getting Viltided away, because that is the big thing that I'm worried about. As you can see here, I have very much screened out the back lines. We're going for the 40k style. I'm just going to measure to the edge of the board and make sure you can't get anywhere. So I had mirrored that on the other flank. I think you can see over here. Yeah, just taking up as much space as possible so that ambushers couldn't come in. Paul decided just to put his ambushers on the board to start with, and I think that was probably the right choice given that I'd screened them out fully. This is the start of turn 1, and basically instead of allowing, instead of just going full, going backwards, instead of going for a full send into the center of the board, which would have been what we call suicide, I decided to send the Pegasus Knights off to the flanks to try and deal with them. In terms of Vile Tides, in the top left here, there's 1 Vile Tide. In the central unit of Gore, there's 2 Vile Tides, and in this Primal War Herd here, there are 2 units, 2 Vile Tides as well, including the Hag Tree Fetish. So what I didn't want to do was be anywhere near this or this. So my thinking was try to just give up this area of the board, win over on this flank, and then there's some, juicy points that I can potentially pick up over here with my heroism character and try and pick up the points there. When I was talking to Paul after the fact, we talked about how if he'd bunkered up, it would have been a much harder game for me. And I think if you're playing Viletide into Beastmen, or if you're playing Beastmen into Bretonnians, God, I can't do words today. The way that you want to play it is realistically make sure you're overlapping your Viletides. Always have 2 or 3 Viletides able to threaten any enemy units that come in. So something like, 2 units of Pegasus Knights, don't give me these flank charges here where I can try and pick you off. Yes, I'm going to take 1 turn of Viletide, but that's not the end of the world. It's only going to be a single unit that's casting on me. I can outrange the Viletides from here in the center as well. So that makes it a lot easier to play. In terms of other deployments, these Dragon Ogres, which are really lovely models, in fact, if I zoom in a little bit, you can see them here, just big beasties. I like them as I was going to say as Viletides, as Dragon Ogres. I've got Viletide on the brain. They were deployed on the hill, and Paul used them really well as a screening force. So if I was going to come into the middle of the board here, he could charge me. But because they're on a hill, it means that the cannonball's going to stop immediately. So it makes it a lot harder for me to hit them with cannonballs because they were just back off the hill. They weren't right on the edge of it. They were just a couple of millimeters back, making it so that the cannonball, if it landed in front of the hill, would then bounce, hit the edge of the hill, stop immediately. So I did like that there. Also, this herdstone on the center right from my perspective, maybe if that one's a little bit close to the center, makes it easier for Paul to bunker up around it, because as it is, he loses the benefit to casting if he's over here, which meant that my magic resist was a little bit more valuable in terms of not just immediately getting Viletided off the face of the earth. Yes, this one went about as I was hoping it would. Paul put his models here. Basically, here I'm just in charge range, but outside of Viletide range on the left flank. I was talking about the virtue of the Impetuous Knight, about how I didn't have to worry too much about being in Viletide range to get a charge off. So Paul marches his models out of sight here so that he can still come forwards to threaten, but he's not as at risk. I fly forwards, and then in my turn, I think it was my turn 3, turn 1 to here, turn 2 to there, yeah. In my turn 3, I've made sure that I'm around the corner of the building so I can always see where things are, and I'm able to get the charge no matter which direction Paul goes in, unless he marches, and he elects not to try and march, because if you do try and march, you can just have him marched. That didn't come up. I'm just assuming that's why Paul decided not to march. He decided to Viletide instead, and I think it doesn't get the spell off because of the magic resist in the unit. On the other flank, I play it a lot more slow. Apologies for the very blurry picture here, but here you can see the Razor Gore move up a little bit, the Tuskor move up a little bit, and I just wait until, basically I wait until I'm safe. The way Paul plays this, because he realizes on turn 2 that I'm going to be very cagey, he moves these central units forwards as fast as possible. Yes, we'll come back to that one. He moves his central threats up the board as fast as possible to try and score points out of me, get the immobile stuff, try and get towards my baggage train, all of that good stuff. But that means that I can get in the back and eat all of his units back here. And also I've got the theoretical range pressure so that if he didn't come forwards, I had some play into him as well. So cannonballs doing work here, killing Tuskor chariots. Takes me 2 turns to kill them. But I do get all 3 of the chariots across the first 2 turns, I believe. By the end of the game, the big thing that I was really pleased with is we had an interesting situation where I had charged the Gore that were just where this tape measure is, and this is, the last turn of the game, so it's before then. But I charged the unit of Gore with double wizard in. I'd killed all of the Gore, and both wizards survived. They are left with, just 2 wizards, and they both flee from combat. I'm left with a choice. Off screen, Down here, this is where we've got both Kralmore and the Hagtree Fetish Caster, and I'm up here. If I overrun, then there's a very real chance that the Viletide casters walk forwards and just Viletide me and pick up a lot of points. And right now, I've got like a 14 or so victory, or 12 to 14 victory. I've got a small to moderate victory. So if that happens, there's kills my general, kills the Pegasus Knights that it's with, it can go very poorly for me. I've taken casualties. So what I do is I restrain, I take the risk that they're going to rally and cast spells into me. I do end up picking them up before the end of the game. But on my last turn, because Paul goes second, so I have to protect him, I set up this little screening force to make it so it's really hard for him to pick up any points with Viletides that can get in range before I do, in case I do whiff and don't manage to kill the 2 Brave Shamans here. So what I do is the unwounded squad is, 3 Pegasus Knights plus a character here, arranged in an L, and I join the Barded Pegasus Paladin, who's got the spell interacts for the MR2, and I just make this a little L of vision blocking that has magic resist 2 and a lot of wounds in it, and behind there I've got the single 1 wound model Pegasus that's, still alive from the bigger unit. I've got the Baron here who has taken a wound or 2, and I've got the Green Knight as well who has also taken some wounds there. And I just quite like that one in terms of their ability to screen for other things. If there's not terrain there, just make your own terrain with your own models, and it'll do you well to screen. So I was happy with that little play. Didn't end up being necessary because I killed the models here with some shooting, but it was just nice to have that happen and to pull it off and know that I was guaranteed safety no matter what. On to the points tally, and this was a close game. This was the closest game of day one, in that you can see strategic location-wise, I was pretty consistently doing okay there, and Paul was struggling a little bit because I was getting around behind him, so he was always going to be holding at least one with that big unit of Primal Warherd with Kralmore in. That was always going to be getting him some points, but I was able to get around the edges with my reserve move models and just generally take points away and consistently rack up that strategic locations. Other than that, managed to get the general. I guess we picked up all the other pieces. I destroyed his baggage train, and he was holding my baggage train. Other bits and pieces there, but gotta say, not a fan of domination. It's a very win more, and it did mean that I had to be more aggressive in this matchup, because if Paul had just spread out at the end of the game and managed to get 2.5 corners, it would have been pretty bad for me. But yeah, I managed to get 450 points. I think Paul got something like 300 points on the domination there, so not a huge swing in terms of that one in this game. Game 3 was against a friend of the channel, Ginger Steve, and his models are absolutely fantastic. Shout out to his commission painter Nick, who has done a really good job here. And Nick deployed just aggressively on the line, which was not really what I wanted to see, but he knew exactly what he needed to do with this list. Up here, we've got 2 dragons next to each other. He has got the actual models there, but because of the wingspan, they can't sit together, so he's just using bases to represent where they need to go, which is something that I, as a Bretonnian player, very, very familiar with having to do, turns out. So, full deploy, you've got, over here, we're on the chance encounter, so we've got strategic locations 3, can't see them super well, but we've got some markers here for the strategic locations. They were not a major part of this game. Steve was going to try and table me in 3 turns or less. That was very much his approach, which is the right way to play the matchup, and I was a little bit terrified of it. Steve's got the classic Exalted Champion on a dragon, magic resist 2 there, favor of the gods, great weapons so the dragon attacks before him, Mark and Nurgle, all the stuff you'd want to see. What are the regen items as well? Then we've got the Sorcerer Lord, who's also magic resist 2, level 3 wizard, battle magic on a dragon. Double dragon in the character slot, pretty good stuff there. There was a BSB on foot, which I really like. Again, magic resist, you've got enchanting aura, meaning that if you go into the infantry unit, the warriors, you're going to be strikes last. They've got War Banner, Mark and Nurgle, pretty tanky. 20 Chaos Warriors with Halberds, Mark and Nurgle, Banner of Iron Resolve for Stubborn, which I think was interesting. Did actually help, I think, in this game. Taskmaster Scourge, just a fantastic item. Test for this unit as far as I remember, and he was rolling consistently 2s and 3s on the D3. It gives you additional movement. You do a command, in the command phase, you do a test. If you pass the test on your leadership, you get plus D3 inches to your movement. This unit was the fastest infantry unit outside of Undead that I've ever seen, and it's a little bit horrifying watching it march 14 inches towards you. 6 Chaos Knights, again, Rhodes and Collar, Rampaging Banner, definitely getting into combat. 5 Dragon Ogres, which is just such a wall of meat that's so hard to deal with. And then the Warpfire Dragon as well. Magic Resist too. The theme here, everything in the list has Magic Resist, with the exception of the Dragon Ogres, but they have a ward save against Magic Missiles and Vortex spells as well. So you're not even that bothered. It's very hard to deal with this list with spells, which I think is the main thrust of it. But also it's just very, very aggressive, which works out pretty well. For my deployment, I try and deploy as widespread as possible. I know that Steve's going to go very, very aggressive towards me, so the way that I deploy is try and make sure that I'm not going to be, you know, theoretically stone throwed on turn 1 from the Warpfire Dragon. That's not something that I really want to have to deal with, but also, you know, we're looking at spreading the peasants out. The peasants are going to be charged early, the cannons are going to be charged early. Put them further apart from each other so that they're not super easy just to eat at the same time. The other cannon is off screen down here in the bottom left, making it really difficult for Steve to get towards without, you know, wasting a dragon for a couple of turns, if not 3. And yeah, my goal was just to pick up as many points and try and squeak out a small victory. Did I take any of the pictures of this one here? Oh, yes. Oh, we'll get onto this one. There was some really poor luck on Steve's behalf here, which we'll talk about in a sec. So turn 1, Steve gets the first turn, and he just full sends forwards. We've got, you know, up here right next to the hill. In fact, I think touching the hill, we've got the Dragon Ogres ready to charge over the top no matter where I try and hide from them. We've got the infantry coming forwards. We've got the Chaos Knights in the center here as well. Got the Warpfire Dragon. It's only moved up a little bit to try and shoot, so it's here. But then we've got the other 2 dragons sort of basically touching this objective facing towards my army. So Steve is set up for a whole swathe of turn 2 charges. And with that pressure on me, I know that I've got to go for it. So on my turn 1, I declare a charge with the Banner of Honourable Warfare and the Virtue of Heroism Baron into the Warpfire Dragon. Warpfire Dragon doesn't have a ward save. It gets a ward save against non-magical attacks. Steve actually rolled Oaken Shield, but didn't get it off on this turn, which is unfortunate because, you know, if you're looking at someone who's going to try and hit you with the Monster Slayer, having a ward save there is really nice. I charge in with this unit. I make the charge. Fantastic. I've got 4 attacks. I'm re-rolling all the hits. I'm going to be wounding. I'm only looking for 6s to wound, theoretically, and I get to re-roll 3 of the failed wounds. I've got a ridiculously high chance of killing this model. I think it's in the high 60s, low 70s. It's very, very likely to kill the Warpfire Dragon. If I don't kill it, you know, I'm going to be lined up with 2 dragons looking at me, and that's a little bit scary because they can just charge into the flank of me, but no worries. I need to be aggressive. I need to put the pressure on. I don't want him to just eat all of my core and artillery and then just have my Pegasus Knights left at the end of the game without having scored many points. So make the charge into the Warpfire Dragon. It'll be fine. On the right-hand flank, I decide to put the other unit over the top of the Dragon Ogres. I decide it's a bit of a trap to charge them on turn 1. They have such a high volume of wounds. I think if I go in, I'm going to kill a few, but I'm going to take a real pounding. I'm going to lose a lot of models from the great weapons that are attacking back at me. I just don't want to take that risk. Also, I'm only hitting on 4s with my lances on the unit. Obviously, the characters can take their pound of flesh, but they, you know, it's very easy to whiff with Bretonnians. And I think if I go into 5 Dragon Ogres, the risk of whiffing is too high. And even if I don't whiff, they can swing back at me and take huge amounts of damage. So I just get, you know, positioning. I'll move the peasants here so they're out of charge range of the 2 dragons on the top left. I start moving everyone around. You know, I think I march this unit down here, the Knights of the Realm on foot, just try and spread thin so that the dragons have a harder time eating my army. All well and good. Get into combat. Roll my attacks. Don't kill the Warpfire Dragon. Oh no, this is bad. Steve decides to put his attacks mostly into the unit because that's easier combat res. Wins on combat res. I roll a break test. I roll an 11. I break and flee. I only flee 7 inches with Swift Stride. Steve rolls like a 9 or something. Not a high roll, but enough to catch me. This is pretty disastrous. Already I'm on the back foot. Steve's deployed well. I am in a spot where I'm really struggling because my big tool for dealing with the enemy dragons is dead. I went in to kill the easiest one first. I didn't kill it. It took maybe like a wound from the unit. I'm very not okay with this. This is a real problem for me. So, yeah, I'm going to need some luck to come back because I've had a little bit of bad luck here. But that's okay. That's Warhammer. You know, if we just went, oh, this is likely to happen, so it happens, it's not really a game. It's just you tell your opponent what happens in your game of make-believe. So having the dice in there, despite it not going in your favour all of the time, does make it a lot more fun, in my opinion. So this flank is now a disaster. We end up in a situation where by turn 3, Steve moves forwards on turn 2. I'm around the back of him here with my unit of mounted yeomen, just scoring points. Fantastic stuff. I'm doing the same over here with these mounted yeomen, getting a lot of points there. Really, really good stuff. But it does end up that I think it's on my turn 3, or sorry, on Steve's turn 4, maybe. He manages to charge both dragons into the front of this unit of Yeoman Guard. Look at this shot. This is a little bit horrifying. I have previously managed to get the wizard out of the unit because I was like, well, you're going to eat my yeoman, you're going to get 210 points. Let's not give you more points for free. So I think this is the second, maybe it's the second round of combat. No, I think it happened on the first round of combat. Do I have another shot in here? Look at that. Look at those lovely models. Look at how they tower over me. Horrifying stuff. Well, I have 2 unit champions. I declare a challenge with one of them. You can only declare a single challenge. I can't remember which one that Steve puts into combat. But, yeah. Unfortunately, Steve really whiffs, and he only does 7 points of total combat res, which across 2 dragons, even with one tied up in a challenge, pretty damn unlucky. Steve then rolls his flee rolls, or his break tests, I should say, and rolls a 10 with one and an 11 with the other. And both dragons are fleeing, which is horrifying. That is a really, really, really unfortunate set of circumstances. Also, the way that they came in from where they were, I think there might have been something in front of them. I can't remember where they're split, but they're a little bit disparate out to the side for some reason, and they flee in different directions. And they flee, one goes really close to the Pegasus Knights, and one goes really close to the reserve move mounted yeoman over here, which is not good, because then it goes to my turn, and on my turn, I declare a charge with the archers who are here in the wood, so that the dragon, the Lord on Dragon, or sorry, the Exalted Champion on Dragon, flees towards the higher, away from the higher unit strength, which is the peasants, and towards the mounted yeomen. And yeah, it just means that no matter what Steve rolls, I'm going to be able to catch him with the mounted yeoman. And then over here, I just managed to catch them with the Pegasus Knights on that flank. And what was looking like a pretty commanding, lead for Steve, that I think I probably could have clawed back to, at minimum, a draw. I do believe that I had play there. I'd managed to get a nice angle on going into the infantry. I was looking at a lot of points that I was going to scrape there. But it was going to be tough. And, if anything went out of my favour, I definitely lose that. I'm already on the back foot. And it goes from that to just, incredible. I managed to eat 2 dragons with, some peasants and some Pegasus. I don't even have to kill them in combat. I just run them down. So, yeah, absolute stonks. The peasants doing an incredible job there, not dying, musician carrying the day, and that static combat res of 7 just being slightly too much to get past it. We played out a little bit more, did a little bit of combat, but after that point it was obvious which way it went, and we talked out, I think it was the last turn, just as to whether or not I'd be able to catch some more points, and it ended up being quite a big win. Brief look at the scorecard here, not to show the points disparity, because I mean, when both your dragons run away, you'd expect it to be a big loss, but doing well on the strategic locations again, and I really just want to shout out the mounted yeomen, doing absolute work there, making sure that I get a huge number of strategic location points, whereas Steve, obviously lower number of scoring core points, does struggle to get those, but that's not what the list is designed to do. The list is designed to table me, and he was on track to do that, for sure. That's the end of day 3, coming into it as one of the 2 players who are 3-0. We go for food, as we always do at the TSN Arena, to the GB Cafe, and I won't tell the story again, but Steve does order the spiciest dish in the restaurant and lives to tell the tale. Talk about that on the podcast if you want to hear more about the event overall and not just the actual games. So, coming into day number 2, where it got round 4, where I'm playing against Orcs and Goblins. As you can see here, playing against Matt, who's the other 3-0 undefeated player, who has got, got the artillery, he's got fanatics. Not as many as fanatics as I was worried he might have. Only 4 in the list, but plenty of good stuff in there. There is a Troll Hag, there is a Wyvern, all of that good stuff, and you can see some artillery in the backlines as well. Let's have a look at his list. Matt has a big unit of Black Orcs that are always going to be, big red raggedy flag, looking to bully the centre of the board, some scoring units in the Goblin Wolf Riders, a couple of units of Night Goblins, and then some other fun stuff in there. A couple of units of Snotlings, which are Very very wounds dense. They're unbreakable. You can shoot over them. All great stuff there. He's got some squig hoppers. Again, random movement. Good into trying to catch stuff like Pegasus Knights. Also, killing blow on the bites there. Pretty horrifying. Couple of wizards, one with rerolls and extra range to cast, and one with rerolls and extra range to dispel. Both of them obviously going to be picking up Etchy Nuisance. There's a war boss on a Wyvern with Trollhide Trousers. A couple of luck stones, which I think is an interesting adaptation. Did ask Matt about it, and it just gives you more consistency, because a lot of the stuff that you're facing against is AP2. So basically, the first AP2 hits that you take, or, you know, whenever you want to use them, or against multiple wound stuff, whatever it comes up with, you're going to be getting a rerollable 5-up armor save before your 5-up ward save, and then before your 5-up regen as well. So quite a tanky character there. Also, the Staff of Badoom Weird Knob, level 4, going to be in with some Black Orcs. Getting that consistent plus massive amounts to cast, which is always really solid there. Troll Hag, which I think is a nice little tweak as well. It's quite a beefy character. It's unbreakable. It's got its own level casting as well. And artillery down here in the bottom. So good stuff here for the Orcs and Goblins players. This game, I don't think I remember to take pictures until, you know, partially into turn 1 or turn 2. But you can see here on the left flank, the right flank was the same. In fact, do I have a better picture here? No. So it might have even been turn 2 that I took the picture. So Matt has moved up and staged behind the hill with the Mangler Squig on the right-hand flank and one of the units of Squig Herd over there. Squig Hoppers, sorry. And then the other unit of Squig Hoppers over here. Just making it really difficult for me to get round and play the objectives. He was screening me off getting the objectives with my reserve move models quite nicely, which was, you know, terrible for me because I've got to try and squeeze points out of this matchup without dying to Fanatics. In the centre, we've got, you know, Night Goblins, Black Orcs. We've got the Troll Hag as well, all protecting the artillery. How did it go in terms of drops? Well, Matt's got loads of drops. So I was like, oh, great, I'll probably get the +1. If I get to go first, I can try and kill his artillery with my artillery. Great stuff. I get the +1. I don't go first, and I do lose one of my bombards on turn 1, which is the worst case scenario when you're playing against, you know, someone who's got artillery. You want to be going first, you want to be killing their artillery first, so you then get free range to shoot cannonballs into troll hags, for example, something like that. It was actually a really difficult artillery match, and I think both of us whiffed quite a bit with artillery, but I did lose one bombard in turn 1. The other one was dropped to only a single wound remaining. I felt lucky getting away with keeping it alive, but I didn't manage to kill any of his artillery with my bombard, and I didn't really get much value out of them in this game, other than having them soak Doom Divers, which is actually pretty good when Pegasus Knights are a real threat that you've got to deal with. I did end up moving over here. This is the Mangler Squig. I had a choice. I could have gone for a long bomb charge, or I could have instead just move up close, and I decided to... so there were some Squig Hoppers here. Fireball off the Squig Hoppers, and then just put all of my Pegasus Knights in right up next close, because I didn't want to risk it. In fact, sorry, I wasn't in range. That was it. I Arcane Urgency to get over here. So I moved up Arcane Urgency close. Given that I've got a Killing Blow character there who has Initiative 5, the Mangler Squig only has Initiative 3. I decided that what I wanted to do was be right next to it, make it so that it couldn't move anywhere comfortably. You know, you can... I was trapping in terms of the direction it could go, but you'd only get +1 on the inch of movement for initiative, so that if Matt decided to charge me, I still get to hit him first with my Killing Blow character. That was the thinking behind it. And Matt wisely chose not to charge me and made me kill it on my turn instead of, you know, giving me an extra round of combat and an overrun. The Green Knight did come in the center here. Matt did have a surprising number of magic missiles, so it was quite hard to use the Green Knight in this matchup, but he was around and he was putting pressure in the center of the board. But as you can see here, Matt using Snotlings to block me from charging the Troll Hag, which would have been pretty upsetting for Matt. Upsetting is the wrong word. Would have been a bad situation for Matt. Do we have any other pictures here? Yes, I think this is just the full board. As standard, you know, tried to spread out my stuff and make it so that the Pegasus Knights get to do things. This is the first game that I didn't, in fact, it's the only game that I didn't have the Wizard in with the Yeoman Guard. I just had him over by the right flank so he could cast some fireballs a little bit more freely. I was worried about the, you know, reroll on the spell that my opponent brought, so wanted to try and get those fireballs off at angles, and I matched his deployment basically. I knew he had some Squig Hoppers over here, and I thought this is the sort of thing that you want to put your fireball into. How did the game go? Went pretty well. There was a failed stupidity here. This is the big downside of trolls, unfortunately. Both Troll Hags did fail stupidity. on a turn where it sucked for them to fail stupidity. So in my turn 3 or my turn 4, I did manage to charge this Troll Hag, which was stood just in the center of the board. Wasn't able to do anything, unfortunately, and then I got a free overrun into the unit here with one of the wizards behind it. After that, it was a lot of just sweeping points. This unit of Pegasus Knights went in and killed the Rock Lobber that's just behind this hill, this building over here, overran it into the Doom Diver, failed to overrun into the next Doom Diver, so I had to soak a turn, or I thought I had to soak a turn of charging. But in this back corner here, you can see there are some Orc Boys. Now, these Orc Boys are skirmishers, and they are frenzy, which is a really nice adaptation that I like, actually, because it makes them immune to psychology. It was one of those things that you look at on the list and you go, I don't quite follow this one. But talking to Matt explained the frenzy makes them immune to psychology, and I was like, oh, wow, there's almost no downside to them being frenzied. What did happen, unfortunately, because Matt had Wind Blast, and I was touching the board edge with my Pegasus Knights over here on turn 4 or turn 5, I was really worried that he'd cast the Wind Blast. It was on the Staff of Badoom caster, so even with my Magic Resist 2, there was a good chance it was going to get through. I was out of range of my Dispel threat. And then I remembered, oh no, your unit has Frenzy, you have to charge me, and I'm safe from the enemy Wind Blast. Ended up just being not in any way a stomp. It ended up being just a safe victory when I managed to pick up the points over here. I went second. We didn't go into lunch. We were, getting to the end of time. We just talked out turn 5 talked out turn 6. We did played turn 5. I looked at it, went, there's no safe points that I can go for. Let me try and kill this troll over here with some shooting. But other than that, just moved everything to safe spots and went, okay, that's my turn, that's the game. And ended up a very slight victory. MVPs in this one, didn't do it for the last game, but in this one, again, these reserve moving models, just being able to get up and get the points. This unit of Mounted Yeomen got the strategic location points here on the right for a couple of turns, then moved up to the baggage train in the back corner here, got the points there, and just kept safe, kept a lot of points, fired off some shots over the course of the game. Really valuable. Really liked what they bring to the table. Would recommend, if you're thinking about Mounted Yeomen, get some human cavalry from Oathmark and don't pay huge amounts of money for the Metal Games Workshop ones. Quick look at the scoreboard here. You can see it is quite a small margin for victory. Matt doing, getting a huge amount of points on strategic locations. I didn't feel like I was able to safely keep them off. I killed 930 points in my army. I only killed a few hundred points more, which at 2,600 points is not like a big swing. Secret objective, I think, I forgot I hadn't talked about secret objectives. They were active for this event. I don't think I'd want them for an event like WTC, which is, theoretically the highest level of competitive. But for an event like this, where there's so many points in the secondaries, there's so many points on the table, the extra 50 or 75 points that you're getting from a secret objective doesn't feel like it matters much, and they were quite fun to do over the course of the event. So, yeah, small victory there. It was the closest game all weekend for me, and I think it was an 11-9 victory, so very, very close there. Coming into the last round of the day, I had the list that probably scared me the most, which is Mikhail's Tomb Kings. This is Grand Army. It's got the Armor of Ages Dragon, but it's also got 2 units of Ashabti. This is pretty horrifying. This is very difficult for me to deal with. And we were talking about how you could fit all of the stuff in at 2,600 points, and it's quite difficult to squeeze into 2,000 points. But I'm going to try, I think. I'm going to play around with the list building a little bit more, because I really like what it does. I feel like it has a lot of play into the general field. It's not only got play into Cathay, but it also has other things that it can face off against, which I like. You've got a Casket of Souls, which is fantastic. You've got a Necrosphinx, which can fly around with a dragon and protect it from, combat res and being challenged out by dragons. You've got some good skirmishing scoring core. 2 units of Skeleton Archers. Mikhail did say at the end that he probably would have changed at least 1 unit to a unit of Warriors. So you've got that light armor shield. You've got some better pieces there in terms of just tanking. But against me, honestly, the Skeleton Archers are pretty scary. You don't want to take high volume of just consistent shooting when you're playing Pegasus Knights. A nice little tweak that he had in here, a cute unit, is the Royal Herald, Warbanner BSB, so Combat Res 2, with Warding Splint for a 5-up save and a 4-up save with the shield, heavy armor Warding Splint, but also a 5-up ward save. But then also Flying Carpet, just fly Swift Stride. Really nice stuff there. Lets you get around the battlefield, and it lets you bring some combat res that you can pair up with the Tomb King, which I think is a really interesting little adaptation. So yeah, this is a list that is absolutely horrifying. Ushabti love to shoot at Pegasus Knights and is something that I was quite concerned about playing into. The mission we were playing on is Close Encounter, the quarters with only 18 inches between them, and as you can see here, there's not a huge amount of terrain on the board. So I did manage to finish deploying first. I got the +1 and I won the roll-off, but I gave the first turn to Michael, and that was a mistake. That was a real mistake. I should not have done that. I missed something, and it could have gone wrong for me. So as you can see here, there are a couple of units of Shabti here. There's the dragon at the front, just very sort of like towards edge of deployment, quite aggressive, because obviously there's a lot of tools in here that I struggle to deal with. Armor of Ages, not a dragon that you can consistently kill with the Killing Blow character, because you have to re-roll all your successful wounds, which is scary. Pretty damn scary. Over here, as you can see, I've bunkered in as much as possible. I've hidden this unit of Pegasus Knights down at the bottom behind 2 units of Peasants, and I feel like I've hidden this unit over here with the Pegasus Knights and, you know, just behind a building. Now, TSN Arena has different terrain for each board, which is great. It's all roughly the same, but this is a board with small buildings, and this is a building here. It is impassable terrain and line of sight blocking. It's not just, you know, pool with some rocks. So I felt mostly safe here, but hadn't factored in how aggressive Michal was, you know, willing to be with his not Plague of Rust, his travel mystical pathways. So I said, you know what, I feel pretty safe on turn 1. I'm spread out. I've got the angle to try and snipe your casket with the cannons, depending on how, you know, you move it with your reserve move. And yeah, Michal just travel mystical pathways up onto here, which I thought was a lot more aggressive than he was going to go, and I hadn't expected him to do, which meant he shot 6 shots into my unit of 3 Pegasus Knights plus character. 2 of them died, which means before I get to go on turn 1, I've already lost one of my major aggressive pieces, and now I'm immediately on the back foot. So if I zoom out a little bit, I haven't got a full picture of the board. So behind this hill is basically where I managed to hide my Pegasus Knights for a chunk of the game. And I just do play a game of try and Arcane Urgency the Pegasus Knights around the board so they can start to try and threaten, but they don't, you know, get shot to pieces by the Ushabti. I shoot back into the Ushabti with my cannons and some fireballs. I get them down to, I think, 3 models. They're out of res range, which is why I wasn't expecting such an aggressive play with them, even though obviously you can do that. It's not like it was hard to see that they could move up and shoot. I just didn't think that they would be moved up so aggressively, and I paid the price for that. This is a matchup that, given the deployment and given the first turn, I'm at a real disadvantage in terms of winning. But this is where, you know, sort of experience in play and understanding how all the matchups does factor in. A mistake was made, and Michal put the dragon in the center of the board and also pushed the Necrosphinx quite aggressively forwards. Now, the Necrosphinx I did quite like, but the dragon coming forwards meant that I could play around it, and he actually went for a charge with the dragon on turn 2 or turn 3 that he failed the charge. He was trying to get into the Pegasus Knights with the Killing Blow character, because I amalgamated them all, I put them behind the hill. I couldn't countercharge because most of the unit couldn't see the dragon. I was just trying to tuck them in. I wasn't going for anything, you know, super exciting. But because he failed that challenge, he ended up with his dragon facing away from anything it was really able to do. And I was able to position my units so that he came forwards and he charged into the front of the Brick of Yeoman Guard on turn, I think it was turn 3 or turn 4. But it let me get around him. I move my Pegasus Knights up into this little pocket over here when the War Sphinx isn't there. Sorry, the Necrosphinx isn't there. And it allows me to set up some really nice combats where I go in with the Green Knight into the back of this Tomb Dragon. Well, I actually managed to line up, I charge the BSB flying, you know, Royal Herald. I kill it in combat with the Green Knight. I overrun into the back of the Tomb Dragon. The Tomb Dragon I challenge with the Green Knight. I then, you know, just have so much static combat res from the unit that it's in combat with already. It crumbles and dies. The Pegasus Knights have gone into the Necrosphinx, which has come over to the center of the board to try and help the, you know, the stuck in Tomb Dragon. I kill that. I get an overrun into some skeletons, and then I test Restrain on my next turn. Manage to go into the front of the second unit of Ushabti that's back here, crumble those, get through them, and then get into the Hierophant as well, and that pretty much ties up the game. Apologies for not taking more pictures here, and I don't know if I've been able to explain that well, but basically, a matchup that could have been won by purely shooting. Michal does get a little bit too aggressive, and because of that, Bretonians are fantastic at pouncing on that sort of, minor mistake, and it does allow me to just get some really nice overruns, choose my my time of fighting, overrun into units, or deliberately not kill things in combat if I'm using lances or hand weapons, whatever it is. Make sure that I'm getting out of combat at the end of his turn, so I'm then able to charge things that theoretically I wouldn't have been able to charge. I was going to be tied up and be shot. And yeah, that does end with, we haven't got a score sheet for that one. We just sort of worked out roughly what the points were, because it was by that point very, very obvious where the game had gone. And we scored that at a 15-5 because Michal did manage to take quite a lot of my points, beforehand, but it was looking like I was going to table him sort of by the end of turn 5, turn 6. That takes us to the end of the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. As I got to the end, I did realize that the lack of pictures really does make it difficult to comprehensively tell the story. So I tried to give as much detail as I could without, verging into the realm of having to grasp for details. So hopefully there was enough in there to make it interesting. Let me know if you'd like me to be more detailed. Maybe I can look at taking more pictures for future videos. And that takes us to the end of the battle report and I guess the hobby update as well. As always, we'll be back with more stuff on next Tuesday, another tier list, all of that good stuff. And if you're looking to improve, if you also want to win events, I do coaching. Down in the description of the video, you can find me at patreon.com/close order. Do my coaching through there. Any level that you're looking to get into and improve, let me know. Thank you for watching. Thank you for getting to the end of the video. If you've reached this point and you haven't already, I would really appreciate a like, a comment, a subscription if you haven't done those things. It just helps me get seen by more people, boost me up in the algorithm, all of the stuff that the YouTubers do like to say. If you would like to support me in my goal to become a full-time YouTuber, I would absolutely appreciate that. You can become a member below. There are various perks to those, name at the end of the videos, all that good stuff, but it also unlocks some VIP areas in Discord if you become a Longbeard or Ground Knight tier supporter. Those VIP sections are the only parts that are locked away in Discord. You don't have to be a member to join the Discord. I'd recommend that you should. We've got about 450, 500 people on there. It's a great place for discussion, a lot of fun. I do try and chime in as much as possible. And it's also where the Fix My List show lists are put, and also if you are one of the Ground Knight or Longbeard tier supporters, where you participate in choosing which list I play in the monthly Pick My List series.